Welcome to another season preview. Today we have the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos are another one of those select teams that really expedited their rebuild with an unexpectedly great 2024 season. Bo Nix had his struggles the first couple weeks of the season and then really put it all together with Sean Payton to form a really solid offense. And that was one of Bo Nix's pros coming into the league, is that he is a more experienced quarterback, one of the most experienced college quarterbacks ever. So he should be come in a little more pro ready, and it seems like he did. Now, coaching definitely has something to do with this, but he definitely didn't have as many growing pains as, say, a Caleb Williams did. And obviously, Jaden Daniels set the pace for rookie quarterbacks last season, but Bo Nix was definitely the second best. So I'll be looking for him to build upon a great rookie season, and hopefully he can just turn that into some more momentum. They should have a slightly better running attack this year, so I'm looking forward to that as well. And speaking of the rushing attack, they drafted RJ Harvey, higher than even I thought he would go, and I'm a fan of RJ Harvey, the UCF running back. He's a bit stockier, a bit shorter, but he's got that straight line speed. That Iowa State game really flashed for me. And I think in a Sean Payton offense, he could really shine. And then they also signed J.K. Dobbins from the Chargers, who had a great comeback year after being down with injuries for a few seasons. So I look for them to form a solid running back duo. And then behind them, you have, you have last year's running back two in Audric Estime, and last year's kind of a gadget running back in Jaleel McLaughlin. This is a decent, low ceiling, high floor running back room. The trenches actually remain exactly the same, which I think it has to be noted. You have Garrett Bowles, Ben Powers, Luke Wattenberg, Quinn Miners, Mike McGlinchey. Now, would you like upgrades at some of these spots? Yeah, but I think for the next year, this is a solid group to go in with, and I expect them to really hold it down for a rookie running back. The wide receiver room in Denver really confuses me. I don't quite understand the order in which these players are. We have Cortland Sutton is the bona fide wide receiver one, just got an extension. And then after that, I have no clue. You have Devon Vele, who had a great year last year, an older rookie. You have Marvin Mims Jr., who had his best rookie or his best season under Sean Payton. You have Troy Franklin, who you spent a fourth on and has, by all accounts, been killing it at training camp and is looking to have a sophomore breakout. You sign Trent Sherfield from Minnesota, and then you draft Pat Bryant out of Illinois, who I had as, I believe, my 150th ranked player. So with all those names being thrown at you, I literally have no idea after Cortland Sutton who even is viewed as, the second option in the wide receiver room. If I had to guess, probably Devon Vele, but I think it's Devon Vele or Marvin Mims, and then you can get into, is Pat Bryant going to get reps over Troy Franklin? The tight end room was the one that really needed an upgrade, and they went out and signed Evan Ingram by way of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, Ingram has had some really great seasons in Jacksonville. The only problem is last year wasn't one of them. He had a lot of injury issues. If he can remain healthy, Ingram is a huge upgrade over what the Broncos have had at the position for the last few years. And I think that puts Adam Trotman as a very serviceable tight end too in the room. Overall, I think the offense is it's decent. In my opinion, it has a ways to go. I think you need a bona fide wide receiver too who can eat up 75 targets. And then I think you need a more established running game and a star on the offensive line for me to really consider it a top tier offense. The defense is the real breadwinner for the Denver Broncos. They run a 3-4 defense on most accounts, and they are one of the best teams in the league with it. In the heart of the trenches, you have DJ Jones, who is a really stout nose tackle. And then on either side of him, you have John Franklin Myers and Zach Allen. That is a really sturdy three-man front. Then blitzing off the edge, you have probably my favorite blitzing linebacker duo in the NFL in Nick Bonito and Jonathan Cooper, both of which have received a decent payday. Up the middle, as that green dot wearer, they signed Dre Greenlaw from the San Francisco 49ers. He's coming off of a serious injury, so we're going to see how he responds. But if he returns to form, they just got one of the best linebackers in football. Next to him, most likely, will either be Alex Singleton or Drew Sanders. Drew Sanders was one of my favorite linebackers in the 23 class, and after an injury, he looks to come back even better than he was when he got to Denver. And personally, I kind of hope to see him get those opportunities. I think he can be a great addition to this defense, especially in a situation where he's coming off of injury. And next to Dre Greenlaw, he doesn't really need to shoulder such a heavy burden, especially with the guys who are rushing the quarterback in front of him and the guys who are covering the wide receivers behind him. And then now I want to talk about depth in the front seven. You have guys like Malcolm Roach at nose tackle, who I'm really intrigued by. And then at the five tech positions, you've got guys like Savion Jones. You've got Ayo Owuzurike. All of these guys who I think are pretty solid players and really, really valuable depth pieces, because I think some of these guys could play starting reps on other teams. They drafted Q Robinson out of Alabama in the 4th round. Q is relatively unexperienced compared to other players in the draft class, and he's undersized, but he offers so much explosive athleticism that I really think his bend and quick twitch could be enough to overcome those size concerns. Then you also have Jonah Ellis, who you took in the 3rd round of the 2024 draft, and he showed some signs of life down the stretch for the Broncos, and I expect him to get some decent opportunity in 2025. I'm really fascinated and excited about the Broncos' secondary upgrades as well. First of all, I want to start, you have Pat Surtain, Defensive Player of the Year, and we all know how hard that is to win when you are not getting 20 sacks and instead you're a cornerback just not being targeted because your coverage is so good. That's how elite Pat Surtain is. Opposite of Pat Surtain will be some sort of combination of Riley Moss or Chris Abrams-Drain. I expect it to still go to Riley Moss because he's the guy that got the reps last year. There were some games that stood out in terms of poor play, like that Bengals game late in the season. But Riley Moss did impress, and I do like him overall. And as a cornerback, too, very solid. But they really upgraded their nickel. Instead of Jaquan McMillan, now it's Jahdae Barron. And Barron was one of my favorite defensive back prospects as a whole because he can play safety, he can play boundary, he can play nickel. And his size does translate best to nickel for sure. But I think in a pinch, let's say a safety goes down or Riley Moss goes down, you can expect Jahdae Barron to no longer play the nickel, have Jaquan McMillan fill that role, and have Jahdae Barron go where the injured player was playing. Just a very versatile Swiss Army knife on the defensive back end. The safety room is solid too. You still have Brandon Jones starting, and then you sign, also from San Francisco, Talanoa Hufanga, who also coming off of an injury, we'll look to see if he can bounce back to full health. And again, if he does, you're getting one of the more dynamic and plays with his hair on fire safeties in the NFL. And then for depth in the safety room, you have P.J. Locke, who I really value as a third safety in a room. Now let's do the thing where we look at the Denver Broncos schedule and predict their record. They start the season at home against the Titans before a quick 2-game trip to Indianapolis, and then the next week against the Chargers. And then they return home for a Monday Night Football game against the Bengals. I'm going to have the Denver Broncos starting the season 3-1. October kicks off with 2 straight road games, one against the Eagles and then one against the Jets. The quick little tidbit about the Jets game is that it's actually in London, so that's a road game for both teams. And then they return home after London to have 2 home games, which is nice after a London trip if you're not going to get a bye against the Giants, so that's kind of a bye, and then the Cowboys. I'm going to once again have the Broncos going 3-1. Week 9, they travel to Houston to face the Texans before a Thursday night football game at home against the Raiders. And then the following week, they play the Chiefs at home before a Week 12 bye, and they come out of the bye to go to the nation's capital and face the Commanders. I'm going to have the Broncos going 2-2 here. I would honestly say out of these 4 teams and the Broncos are probably the second best team overall. as it currently stands. But I think you got to drop a random one somewhere. So I'm going to drop a random loss here where I think it could be tight. So 2-2 in this stretch to make them 8-4. They finished the season with a stretch of at Las Vegas to play the Raiders, 2 home games against the Packers and the Jaguars, a road game against the Chiefs on Thursday Night Football, which is actually Christmas, and then they finished the season at home against the Chargers. I'm going to have the Broncos going 3-2 in this stretch to finish with a record of 11-6. 11-6 with my current predictions is enough to make the Broncos the 2nd seed in the AFC West, and that would be good enough for a playoff berth, which is all you can ask for. They have the best defense in the NFL, and when you're in the Chiefs division, it's going to be tough to steal it away from them. So get them into the playoffs. They'll have a road game, but I'm sure they can. This is the year where I think you need to put it together to win a playoff game. We'll see who they face in the first round. It'll be interesting, but I mean, best defense in the league, or at least top 3. You got to have them in the postseason. I appreciate you guys watching. If you like this one, we've got one more AFC West team, and that is the Las Vegas Raiders. I'll probably record it later tonight. And until then, I will see you later. Adios.